Hello and welcome back to Small Screen Stories. This is the show where I go over all the news in the world of entertainment and pop culture. I am Edward Lauder. I'm the editor of Small Screen, and if you can like and subscribe to this video, that'd be wonderful. If you could do that, be a massive help to me, to the site, to everyone involved with Small Screen. And today's going to be a bit of a different episode. I haven't done an episode for a while because it's been Christmas, and today is New Year's Eve, so it's the last day of 2020. And I thought, with it being the last day of 2020, that it also be the perfect opportunity to go over the things we've seen this year in film and TV. Unfortunately, not video games, because I personally didn't play enough video games this year. But, if you do like writing about video games, then please do email me. You can email me at edward@small-screen.co.uk if you're interested in writing about video games for the website. But yeah, so I wanted to go over some of the very best of the year, which has been such an unusual year. So this is going to be kind of weird. It's going to be some very odd lists. I'm going to go over, as I said before, films, TV shows, but I'm also going to do some rankings of like DCEU movies now that we had Wonder Woman 1984 come out. I'm also going to review Wonder Woman 84 and Soul, which are the two big releases during this Christmas break, if you can call it that. And then I'm also going to talk a bit about the state of DC films, Walter Hamada, what's happening with Robert Pattinson and Batman, or what's not happening with Robert Pattinson and Batman, and the potential of there being two versions of Batman at the same time. So I'll go into that in more detail in a bit. But let's kick off this whole thing with going over Small Screen's top 5 films of the year. So basically what I did was I reached out to Small Screen's writers and asked them to give me their top 5 films of the year. That is not an easy thing to do, as I said before, given how weird this year has been and the fact that most of the movies that were supposed to come out in 2020 were pushed into 2021. But there were some. There were a few that did come out this year. And I wanted to go over some of them. So the very first, I will name the writers because they were the ones that gave them to me, and I just wanted you to get to see them. So here we go. Here's Alessia Armanise's top 5 films of 2020. So she picked in 5th position Emma from Universal Pictures, Birds of Prey in 4th position were from Warner Brothers Pictures, Hillbilly Elegy over at Netflix, which was a bit of a divisive film, Rebecca, which is another Netflix film, and then Happiest Season at number 1, which is the Kirsten Stewart holiday film, which was over on Hulu, which I actually also really, really loved. I actually loved all of those films, I'm going to be honest. Then we have Daniel Peter, who writes for us on a regular basis. He does a lot of box office stuff. He's been brilliant for Small Screen. So he put Wonder Woman 1984 in 5th position. I'm a bit surprised about that one, but I'm happy to see it there. The Gentleman, which is Guy Ritchie's film, in at 4. Parasite at 3, which is the Oscar-winning film Parasite. Again, I didn't really explain this. This is based on UK release dates, so Parasite could still be in there. So it's January to December 2020, and I think Parasite came out in January in the UK. And then after that, we have The Trial of the Chicago 7, which is a fantastic film, Aaron Sorkin film over on Netflix. And he put Bad Boys for Life in at number 1, and he said he wasn't sorry about it. He was waiting for that film for a long, long time. I'll cut over mine. I'll go over mine at the end. Hamish Calvert, who's done a lot of stuff for us, he put in And Then We Danced, which is a film that I haven't seen. The Invisible Man, which comes in a lot in these top 5 lists. Parasite again. 1917 and Calm with Horses. Again, 1917 was technically a 2019 movie in the US, but over here in the UK, it did actually come out in 2020. Calm with Horses is another film I haven't seen, so if you're interested in seeing that, then do go and see that. Then we got Raven Brunner, who in 5th position, gave us The Invisible Man, which again, as I said before, has come up a lot. Run, which is another film I haven't seen over at Hulu. The Half of It on Netflix. The Photograph, Universal Pictures. And Endings, Beginnings, which is actually, I watched that on Netflix. So I think it's probably on Netflix everywhere. I'm not entirely sure about that. But yeah, interesting. I'm going to be honest, I didn't. Endings, Beginnings is a film that is not quite for me. But I'm glad it's in there. So, and then Rich Burnham. So he put The Gentleman in at number 5. Hamilton, which is on Disney Plus, which actually apparently is the most streamed film of the year. Apparently, that's these things kind of. Like if you see conflicting reports, but it's definitely one of the most streamed films of 2020. Palm Springs, which is the who's in this? Andy Samberg in that. I haven't seen that. I really want to see that. Da 5 Bloods on Netflix, and The King of Staten Island is his number 1 film of 2020. And then mine, as I kind of went over pretty quickly, Extraction. Yeah, I love that film. Over on Netflix, The Trial of the Chicago 7. Uncut Gems, The Invisible Man, and Jojo Rabbit, which is technically a 2020 film because it was released in January in the UK, January 2020. So I kind of cheated, I think. But let me know what you guys think. Well, first of all, let me know what your favourite films of 2020 are. I'd love to know. There are, I mean, the ones that we keep on coming back are the likes of the Trial of the Chicago 7, Parasite, The Invisible Man is one. They're the ones that... The Gentleman came up twice, actually. So The Gentleman... So I'm kind of trying to think of an overall kind of small screen top 5. I'm pretty sure the Trial of the Chicago 7, The Invisible Man, Parasite, The Gentleman, and then the fifth one is kind of, there are lots of different ones, but let's put Palm Springs in there, in at number 5. So this is just something that I've wanted to do for quite some time now, and I also did a best of, as I said before, the best TV shows of the year, and that was slightly easier because there were some very good TV shows that came out in 2020. There are a lot more TV shows that came out in 2020 than movies. So, with that in mind, here we go. So, I'm going to put this up again. So it's the same similar people, similar writers sent me this. So Alessia's top 5: The Crown season 4, Little Fires Everywhere on Amazon Prime, Dead to Me season 4 on Netflix, The Undoing on HBO, and Unorthodox in at number 1. I'll bring that up there, and that's at Netflix. And actually, the Unorthodox and Dead to Me and The Crown come up quite a few times. Daniel Peter, he gave us in at number 5, The Last Dance on Netflix, His Dark Material season 2, that's HBO BBC, Normal People on BBC, The Crown season 4 on Netflix, and The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. And then I'll just give you mine very quickly. The Crown season 4, I love that. Ragnarok is a show that I really, really adored that came out this year on Netflix, season 1. Unorthodox is brilliant. Dead to Me season 2 is really good, and I put in The Mandalorian season 2 in at number 1 because I loved that. That's on Disney Plus. Lawrence Rennie gave us his top 5 TV shows of the year. The Mandalorian season 2, The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is the follow-on from The Haunting of Hill House, which I thought it was fine. I really wanted it to be better, but I'm glad to see that Lawrence liked it. The Queen's Gambit at number 3. The Queen's Gambit is a show that comes up a lot. Lovecraft Country in at 2, and The Last Dance in at number 1. So then we have Lydia, and Lydia, her number 1 is, I let it slide because I was like, yeah, you know what? If you haven't seen it before, then you can. And 2020 is a weird year anyway. So she put Lucifer season 5 part B in at number 5, His Dark Material season 2 from the BBC, The Queen's Gambit in at number 3, Modern Family at number 2, and Friends at number 1. So Modern Family and Friends, of course, didn't come out in 2020, but with it being one of those odd years, I said, you know what? If those are the 2 shows that you liked watching this year the most, then put them in. Because 2020's been an odd year, and I know that a lot of people have kind of been rediscovering a lot of old shows. And you know what? I love Friends and Modern Family. I think they're 2 great shows. So Raven Brunner is someone that she does a lot of TV stuff for us. So I would look at her list and really check out the things that are on her list. I'd look at all the people's lists, but Raven and Lydia are the 2 people that write the most about TV shows on small screen. So she, at number 5, put Duncanville, which I haven't seen. At number 4, Breeders, with season 1, which I haven't seen. Everything's Going to Be Okay, and at number 3 over at Hulu, which I haven't seen either. Little Fires Everywhere is the one show I have seen on her list, which I thought was it was all right. It was all right. It wasn't my favorite of the year, which is why it wasn't in my top 5. And then I know this much to be true, which is an HBO miniseries. I believe it stars Mark Ruffalo, I think. But yeah, so there are some shows on her list that I haven't seen before, and I think if you're struggling to watch to think of if you're struggling to think of things to watch in 2020 or 2021, which it will be tomorrow, then look at her list. There are some really good things in there. So Rich Burnham, he put I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here on ITV in number 5, which I thought was quite funny because it's an ITV show. If you're not based in the UK, you probably won't know what that is. It's a weird show, and we get celebrities and we put them, this year because of COVID, they put them in a church in Wales. So he put that in at number 5. Tiger King in at number 4. Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is on Netflix. So as I said, this is old, but it arrived on Netflix a year ago. So it did get people through lockdown, and that's exactly what Rich said. The Queen's Gambit in at number 2, and The Mandalorian season 2 in at number 1. So if you look at this list, again, you can really see that Netflix are kind of runaway winners of 2020 as far as, well, actually both movies and TV shows are concerned. And the reason being is because it's more available. So people can actually go and watch these shows as well pretty easily. It's really easy to go and watch these shows. So that is why they're there. That is why they're so prominent. But I will also say that they made some pretty good shows this year and movies. So I'm not overly surprised to see so much Netflix stuff in this kind of best of year. But let me know what your favorite movies and TV shows were of 2020. If there are things that you'd watched that you hadn't seen before that maybe came out in another year that really helped you this year. I mean, it's been quite TV shows and movies have played quite an important part, I think, in people's lives, especially being stuck at home. But just let me know what you guys think. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the films that hopefully will come out in 2021. So this is something that Daniel Peter did for us, and I'm very, very grateful to have him on my team. And he did something that I was thinking of doing for a long time, which is he basically went through all of the movies that are supposed to come out in 2021, and he gave us his favorite ones. So I'll put them up here again. So as you can see by the feature image, yes, Black Widow is on this list. So number 1 was No Time to Die. The Matrix 4. These are, I mean, The Matrix 4 was supposed to come out in 2021 anyway. Whether it's still going to come out, I'm not sure. But of course, No Time to Die was supposed to come out this year, as in 2020. Then we have Many Saints of Newark, which is the continuation of The Sopranos, but it's a movie. That's going to be an interesting one. And then we have Black Widow, which was again supposed to come out in 2020, but now was pushed to March, I believe. No, May, 2021. Then we have The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is the next film in the Conjuring franchise, which I am very, very excited to see. It's going to see Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga return. And then I will head on over to the, the part 2. So that was part 1. So here we go, part 2. Top Gun Maverick, which again was supposed to come out in 2020 and now is coming out in 2021. Dune, which was supposed to come out in 2020, is now coming out in 2021. I believe it's, I cannot remember the exact date. But yeah, that's coming out next year. And then we have Mission Impossible 7. If they manage to finish that movie, I have heard that Tom Cruise is back on set, which is good news. Spider-Man 3, that's coming out next year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that's coming out next year. And then he also put in some special mentions. So he put Raya the Last Dragon, which is coming straight to Disney Plus, actually. Morbius, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, Jungle Cruise, Godzilla vs. Kong, Minions, The Rise of Gru, the Resident Evil reboot, and Death on the Nile. So there are some movies that I think you should all be excited to see in 2021. Hopefully they will actually come out and we will be able to go to cinemas again. I really do hope that's the case, but you never know with COVID. I really did think at the beginning of all of this that cinemas, well, they did open for a while. I did get to see Tenet in the cinema, for instance, but it's one of those things. This year's been a bit of a weird one, and it's just unfortunate, really. But hopefully 2021 will be better. So moving on from that, well, actually, let me know which films you're excited to see in 2021. If any of the films on our list made it into yours, please let us know. And then moving on from that, it's time to rank the DC Extended Universe films from best to worst. And of course, this is after we just got Wonder Woman 1984 either in cinemas or streaming, wherever you are, if cinemas are open. And if you're in the US, then you could go and watch it on HBO Max. So here we go. I'll get the article back up for you guys. So it's not easy ranking the DCEU films from best to worst. No, it isn't. This is my personal ranking, and of course, because I'm the editor of Small Screen, it is also Small Screen's official ranking of the DCEU movies. But in number one, we have Wonder Woman, the 2016 film that I think is still the best DCEU movie ever made. I love this film. I think it's brilliant. I think Patty Jenkins did a brilliant job with the movie. I do think the final third act, or the third act or the final act of the movie is rather lackluster, which is a shame because the rest of the film was so good. But, it's just one of those things. It seems to be a running thing with DCEU movies that the end of them are rather dark and dingy, and they just kind of end up in a big CGI fight at the end. So in at number 2, we have Aquaman, which I do think is the most fun film in the DCU. I just had a lot of fun with it. I think James Wan is a brilliant director, and I think this film, I really did not, as you get to see the abs on show, I really didn't expect it to work. I'm going to be honest with you. I really didn't think it was going to work, but I came out of the film thinking I really, really enjoyed that. So obviously James Wan did something right, so that's in at number 2. In at number 3, Man of Steel, which is one of my favorite, if not my favorite Superman film. And I have issues with it, but I have issues with all Superman movies. I think personally, Henry Cavill is perfect casting. I actually think the DCU is really, really well cast, just in general. But with Man of Steel, I think Zack Snyder did something really interesting with the character. He kind of modernized the character. He gave us a really good Superman. I do think there are plot problems. I do think the Superman we get is a bit too angry, let's say, a bit too aggressive. But I really enjoyed the film, and I would love to see a second one. So that's number 3. And in at number 4, this is probably where you guys, a lot of DC fans, are going to look at me and be like, what the hell are you thinking? But Birds of Prey, I love that film. I actually genuinely think it's a good film. I talk about fun. I think Birds of Prey is a really fun film. And it's got a very strong cast. It's got a very strong lead in Margot Robbie, who's brilliant as Harley Quinn. I think she was the best thing in Suicide Squad, which actually isn't that difficult. But she was the best thing in that film, and she was the best thing in Birds of Prey. And I would love to see more of these sorts of films, but I don't think we're going to get to, which is a shame, but it's just one of those things. Then in at number 5, we have Shazam, which I feel is, as I said, it's not great and it's not terrible. So it's kind of okay. It's like, I think the best way to describe this film is a bit meh. Although I do think Zachary Levi as Shazam is perfect casting. So yeah, that's in at number 5. And then in at number 6, unfortunately, it's Wonder Woman 1984. I know you're probably thinking, where is this film? Yeah, I didn't really enjoy it. The overriding feeling I had of watching this film was of great disappointment. I was really expecting more from Patty Jenkins, and I'll go into why a bit later on in the review. But it's just, I was really upset by it. And I'm glad to hear that some people liked it, because I really, really, really love everyone involved in the film. I think Gal Gadot is a perfect Wonder Woman. I think Patty Jenkins is a great director, and she actually wrote this film, which might actually be part of the problem. But that's in at number 6. In at number 7, we have Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. So there's a lot of good, but also a lot of bad in this movie, which is why this is quite far down the list. I love, for instance, the Batman fight scene where he's trying to save Martha, who is Superman's mother. But that brings me into my least favorite aspect of the DCU as a whole, and that's that whole Martha scene between Batman and Superman, where they both realize that their mothers or surrogate mothers have the same name. And I'm like, is that really a reason to stop fighting? Because Batman was literally about to kill Superman. And there's another issue I have with that film is that the Batman in it, I do actually think Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman is a very interesting one and actually one of the best we've had. But I also think that he's just too killy. He's too murdery. And there's something I don't quite like about that version of Batman. But there are things that I like about it. I think that Batman beating up a bunch of thugs scene to try and save Superman's mum is the best scene, hands down, in the DCEU. I think that is the best scene in the DCEU. But then again, you can't have a film be brilliant just based on one scene. And I think the rest of it is actually pretty poor. But that's just my personal feeling about the film. Then in at number 8, Suicide Squad. And I did say at the beginning of this David Ayer's Suicide Squad, but it's not David Ayer's Suicide Squad because, of course, David Ayer's Suicide Squad was never actually released. The vision that he had was never put into cinemas, which is a shame, and I really don't like that. Even though, for instance, I don't think Batman vs Superman is a particularly good film, I still love the fact that it's Zack Snyder's vision, and I love the fact that he got to do what he wanted to do with that film. What happened here was that the studio panicked and took over the movie and then ended up cutting it into something that it was never meant to be. As I said, it's just a really bad movie. It's poorly edited, poorly written, not particularly well acted, and it's not David Ayer's film. And it's a product of studio interference and basically, yes, to the point of ruin. I think the film is actually dreadful. But then number 9, and the worst film in the DCU by far, is Justice League, or shall we call it Justice League? I think that's how people call it. It's terrible. That film, again, if we're talking about studio interference, they took the film away from Zack Snyder, and Zack Snyder had a vision, and we're going to see that pretty soon, and hopefully it'll be good. I really hope it will be good, but the thing that Joss Whedon gave us was not good. It was a mess. It was, as I said, you could barely call this a film. The plot was all over the place. Scenes just didn't make sense. It was an ugly movie. It was actually a really, really ugly movie. And I do not like ugly films. The one thing you can say about Zack Snyder's movies is they're not ugly. They're very, very well shot. And this was just not that. It had this whole red grain to it, which was just bad. The characters just didn't really make much sense. The plot made no sense. The villain was poor. It's just poor. It's like a fail, F grade movie. And hopefully we're going to get to see a better one in the not so distant future. I think it's March. I think we're getting Zack Snyder's Justice League, and let me know what this again is a personal ranking for me, but let me know what your rankings of the DCU movies are in the comments below. Right, moving on away from all of that, and I think that's enough lists for now. The thing I wanted to talk about was Walter Hamada. And Walter Hamada did a recent interview with the New York Times, and in that interview, he said a lot of stuff. So one of the first things he said was that they're going to be releasing 4 movies a year, 2 of which are going to be put onto HBO Max, and that's cool. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a good idea, and it seems to mean that we're going to get a lot of movies coming our way very soon. But he also said things like, he basically used the word cul-de-sac, talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League and his kind of DC universe thing, and said that there's not really going to be anything beyond Zack Snyder's Justice League in that realm, which is kind of unusual to say considering we've got Wonder Woman 3 coming out. But to me, reading that article, it really did sound like an anti kind of... It sounded like a bit of a cry for help. And James Simon, another writer who's been helping me out a lot recently,
did a really good article, which I think you should read. I'll put it up here. All about Walter Hamada out of Warner Brothers Pictures and DC Films, ? So he goes, in this article, he goes into what's been going on at DC Films and Warner Media. So Walter Hamada is the kind of overseer at DC Films. And this kind of then stems from, I'll bring it up here, this tweet that Ray Fisher put out there when he said, Walter Hamada is the most dangerous kind of enabler. His lies and Warner Brothers PR's failed September 4th hit piece sought to undermine the very real issues of the Justice League investigation. I will not participate in any production associated with him. Accountability larger than entertainment. So that is a massive statement. And of course, he made this statement right after the Warner Brothers, right after the New York Times article was released. And it makes me think, what is going on at DC Films? It's really a bit of a mess. And I'll take this off. I'll just take it. But yeah, again, do go and check that article out. You can find it on the site. You can. I tweeted it out, and it's also on Facebook. But Warner Brothers have made some really odd decisions recently. So, of course, they fired Johnny Depp from Fantastic Beasts 3, which a lot of people are really upset with. There's the whole Amber Heard thing going on, which they're keeping her on and looking as though they're going to keep her on in Aquaman 2. And then there's Zack Snyder's Justice League. And it was said by Zack Snyder himself that he was asked by Toby Emmerich to make that film, to whether he could actually get his cut of Justice League out there. It wasn't Walter Hamada's decision. And Walter Hamada comes from, I think he's a very good producer. I think he's had some really good films made under his watch. I spoke earlier about the Conjuring films. They were produced by him. And he did a lot of movies with James Wan, which is probably one of the reasons why Walter Hamada is now a big cheese over at DC Films. But I always saw Walter Hamada as a stopgap, so someone to come in to kind of stop the hemorrhaging that was going on at DC Films and Warner Brothers, particularly DC Films, which is why he's like the overseer. So he's not actually the head of DC Films. And I wonder whether that article, because there are actually a very few quotes from him. He does in that article say that they're going to be looking at making two Batman separate franchises. They have Robert Pattinson's Batman and a new Batman as well, and a new bunch of films that won't be Ben Affleck. And it just seems to me like it's just throwing so much out there with no real vision. And that, again, him coming out and saying, we've got 4 films coming out every year. It's like, you think, really? Is that really what people need? And also, he didn't specify whether they were live action films or animated films. So there could very well be 2 live action films coming out every year and 2 animated films. But he did specifically, like, the article, not him, did specifically name, I think it was the Static Shock film and the Batgirl films as one that could come direct to streaming, basically, to HBO Max. It's just Warner Brothers and DC Films are in such a weird place, especially, although now they've literally just revealed that Wonder Woman 3 is going to happen. They're bringing Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins back. They wanted to make that very, very clear very early on. They did that after the film was basically certified fresh by Rotten Tomatoes. And then now you look at the percentage now on the critics score, and it's much, much lower than it was before. It's no longer certified fresh. So I think they really jumped the gun on that one. And I love Patty Jenkins, and I love to see. And I'm not putting the blame specifically on Walter Hamada, but the tweet from Ray Fisher makes me think that there are issues with him, with the hierarchy at Warner Brothers, and it's very, very dangerous. And fans are starting to notice. And again, the headline of this article is, is Walter Hamada out of Warner Brothers Pictures and DC Films? I don't think they'll get rid of him anytime soon. I think he'll probably be in there until at least 2022 in that position, because there are some films that he wants to make sure he gets to oversee, which he's been working on.
But it does feel to me like there's no real direction at Warner Brothers. There's no plan. And I know it's probably not fair to do this, but you cannot but compare what's happening at DC Films to what Marvel Studios did. Marvel Studios had a vision. I mean, I'm not even saying they need someone like Kevin Feige. What I'm saying is they need to sort out their plan. They need to sit down with everyone and be like, okay, what are we working on? What are we dropping? And there doesn't seem to be that. Even if they kind of go, which I actually hope they do, if they say, look, we're not doing the interconnected thing anymore. We're just going to focus on making as many good movies as we can, or we're just focusing on making good movies. Maybe not. It's not, saying we're going to release 4 films a year is not, as a DC. I'm a DC Comics fan. As I actually like a lot of the DCEU films. I love DC. I'm a DC guy. If you look at the comics behind me, the majority of those are DC comics, and I used to have a lot more, and I got rid of them because I was moving. But and carrying around comic books is heavy, but it's just upsetting. It's like I want them to focus on making let's say focus on making fewer films, but just focus on making them better. It does not matter how many movies you bring out, and I get the feeling that this is what Walter Hamada's thinking is. Let's just get as many films out as possible and hope that there is maybe one might be good out of 4, and that's not enough. If you're making 4 movies a year, 4 of those, each film has to be brilliant. Really, it has to be like 8 out of 10s. You can't end up with a Wonder Woman 1984, which is basically a 6 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned, and that actually basically be your only movie that comes out this year. They had so much time. Anyway, I'm gonna talk about that later, but I do think Walter Hamada is in a difficult position. I think Ray Fisher's tweet doesn't make it any easier for him, because it kind of it made me think, there might be some issues going on at Warner Brothers and DC Films. There was the investigation into Warner Media that actually Ray Fisher got basically happened because of him. And they came out and said that they made they did everything they needed to do, and they kind of fixed the problem. But as far as Ray Fisher's concerned, no, the problem's not fixed. There are still people there at Warner Brothers that are problematic. He spoke about Toby Emmerich in the Forbes article, who's basically the head of Warner Brothers now, and saying that he's a problem. And now he's saying Walter Hamada is also a problem. So I suppose what I'm getting at is Warner Brothers needs a big shake-up. They need to have, basically, I'm talking about fewer. They need fewer people involved at the very top. They've got too many. I know there's a really good video done by Grace Randolph where she went over all the she went over the Warner Brothers hierarchy, and it's just mad. It's insane. There are so many different people involved, and it's just got worse since AT&T is kind of, they now basically own Warner Media. I think they do own Warner Media, and it's just got worse because they've got more people involved. It's too many people. It is the corporate world, but unfortunately, if you're going to be making these movies as good as they possibly can be, and if you really want them to keep on happening, then they need to sort their act out. They need to sort themselves out. They need to clean house. They need to think outside, they need to think out, not just outside the box. I'm talking in cliches, but they really need to look at who they can bring in that will steady the ship, who they can bring in that will actually help these movies become better in the long run, because they really desperately need to be better. And the whole thing with Wonder Woman 84, I was really hoping that film was going to be the best DC Comics movie ever made, but it was not. It had every opportunity to be, but it was not. And why is that? Is that Patty Jenkins' fault? Patty Jenkins' fault? I don't think so. I don't think it's her fault. I do wonder whether someone at Warner Brothers, maybe even a Jeff Johns who was involved in writing the film, or someone higher up, someone like Walter Hamada, got into her ear and freaked her out and got her to change the movie. Because Patty Jenkins is a much better director than what we got. She should have made a much better film, and
I'm not very confident at the moment with what's happening at Warner Brothers, just in general. But it worries me as a DC Comics fan. But let me know what you guys think about that. That was a very long discussion about all of that, and I'd love to know what you guys think. But moving on, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to talk about an exclusive that we came up with a couple of days ago now, but because I haven't done a live stream in a while, I haven't had the opportunity to go over it. And it's to do with Keanu Reeves. And according to our sources, Keanu Reeves is now in talks to join a pretty exciting future project at the in the MCU. So I'm trying to find the article. Can't find the article. So it's not there. Where is it? Where is my Keanu Reeves article? Did it go into news? There we go. Having an interesting behind-the-scenes look at what goes on during these live streams. But so Keanu Reeves is reportedly in talks for a role in a future Marvel series. So I've seen a lot of people take this exclusive and run with it, which is great. But they kind of reported it wrong. They said it was for a Disney Plus series, which is actually not what I was told. I'll go to the quote. So Keanu Reeves and Marvel Studios are currently in talks over a role in a future Marvel TV series which hasn't been officially revealed yet. And then I pressed the source for more information, and then the source said the role is still undisclosed, but what I'm hearing is that it's for a series involving Ghost Rider. And then another source corroborated the first source and also added that, yes, I can confirm that Keanu Reeves is in talk for a role in the MCU. It's for one of Marvel's upcoming shows. What I do not know is which series it will be. It seems as though, and again, as I kind of go through all of the other, I don't think I put any other quotes in the article, but it seems as though it could be for Ghost Rider, but again, that was not what I was told, and also I was not told that it's for a Disney Plus series. As far as now, I'm going into speculation areas, which I tend to do with these things, but as far as I'm aware, I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being one of their more mature or more violent TV shows that they put on either Hulu in the United States or Star, which is their kind of more mature area of the Disney Plus kind of streaming service that they have, which is password protected, so that your kids can't get onto that. But I'm pretty sure it'll be that, and he's been linked to the Ghost Rider role for quite some time. But we also know that Keanu Reeves and Marvel have had a lot of talks over the years about potentially bringing him into the MCU. Kevin Feige has been very vocal. He really likes the actor and he really wants to bring him into the MCU. They just haven't found the right role for him. So it's I'm 70% sure it's Ghost Rider, but again, you can quote me on that if you want. But it's this whole thing is I have this. I mean, especially it's kind of gone quiet over the Christmas period, but this discussion, open discussion with the sources, and as soon as I get any more information on this, I will let you know. But as far as that's why I said in a future Marvel series, and it's basically an undisclosed role. So the story is that Keanu Reeves is talking to Marvel Studios about a role in a future Marvel TV show. Now that I've heard a lot of people saying, "Oh well, Keanu Reeves is box office, so he's bigger than a TV show." Well, yes, he is, but these Marvel TV shows are not your ordinary Marvel. They're not your ordinary TV shows, are they? You have Paul Bettany, you have basically everyone involved in the Marvel Cinematic Universe turning up in these TV shows. So it's not quite the same as like him turning up in a CW show. What it is him turning up in a Marvel Cinematic Universe property, which and he's playing a character. He will be playing a character in that property that could then be expanded upon in a future movie. What do you guys think of this? I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I'm a big Keanu Reeves fan, and I really cannot wait to see him join the MCU. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Right, moving on to I will do this. So basically, I was part of it. There was the Geekosity Christmas Jam Scoop. I think that was what it's called. If I got that name wrong, I am sorry. But basically, a bunch of different YouTube channels and me, well, and sorry, and small screen. We basically did a bunch. Mikey Sutton sent us a bunch of scoops, and Mikey Sutton is an industry insider, and he gets a lot of information, and he's pretty much spot on with everything he puts out there. So I got the Captain Britain scoop, and one of the other scoops that was out there was that Marvel is discussing a Ghost Rider series to debut on Hulu via Disney Plus. So this kind of ties into what I was talking about before, which is probably why people got a bit confused and saying that, it's Ghost Rider coming to Disney Plus. That sounds a bit weird because Ghost Rider would be quite violent. It would come to Disney Plus, Hulu in the United States, Star in the UK and the rest of the world, really. So here's what Mikey Sutton said. The Midnight Suns may be introduced in one of the new Blades movies, but Marvel Studios see him as the perfect vehicle for a mature TV show while making theatrical appearances as well with his freakish partners in the Midnight Suns. In the months ahead, development will begin to commence and reveal who is going to generate scares on Hulu. So then I suppose that does tie in with my article on Keanu Reeves being in conversation for a Marvel TV show. So, I mean, all things are pointing towards Keanu Reeves playing Ghost Rider in the MCU. Which is I suppose it's kind of weird as well, because if you've been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., then you will know that they did kind of have a Ghost Rider. Well, they did have Ghost Rider in that show. But the thing is with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I don't really think Kevin Feige considers that to be canon, even though there have been actors from the MCU turn up in that show. So, you had Samuel L. Jackson turn up in that show at one point. And it's difficult, but I'm pretty sure they're going to kind of act as though that never happened because that show's now ending. And it's had its time, and I think people are going to be moving away from it. But let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. Right, I'm going to finish off today's rather long stream, sorry about that, with two reviews. And of course, I said this before, I'm going to review Soul and Wonder Woman. So let's start off with Soul. I am a massive, massive fan of Pixar, and I think their films, I know people call them kids movies because they're animated, but they are so much more than just kids movies. And you have the likes of Inside Out, you have Up, you have Coco, more recently you have Toy Story even. All of these films explore very kind of grown-up themes. Sorry, it is the end of the year, and of course I'm getting a bit sick, but they explore some very mature themes. So often loneliness, depression, death, some of them. And they do it in such a clever way. They package it in a way that's like you're not really realizing what you're watching until you watch it, until afterwards, until you think about it, sit down and think about it. So if I'm going to talk about peak Pixar, for me that would be Inside Out. I think Inside Out is one of their best movies, and that was directed by Pete Docter, and Pete Docter is one of the co-directors of Soul. I believe it was his original idea. Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm right on that. And it's he co-directed with Kemp Powers, so it stars Jamie Foxx, Tina Fey, Graham Norton, Rachel House, Alice Braga, Richard Ayoade, all the Angela Bassett, loads and loads of people in this, and but it's really Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey are the main characters. Actually, Graham Norton has quite a big role in this movie. And the story is Jamie Foxx plays what's his name in the movie? Joe Gardner, who's a music teacher, and but his real dream is to become a famous jazz musician. And he finally gets a big gig after he did an audition, and he was very impressive in that audition. But walking home, he falls down a manhole and he dies. And then he ends up basically going to the Great Beyond, but he doesn't want to go to the Great Beyond yet because he wants to play the gig. So the whole kind of from that point on, it's about him trying to get back to Earth and trying to get back to his body. Along the way, he meets someone. He meets basically there are all these souls which are kind of before they go into go to Earth and inhabit a human body. I don't know how else to put it. They're kind of they're given their badge. And so they get, which is basically their personality, and they all have to have a mentor, and the mentor has to help them find their spark. And what is their spark? Well, it's the thing they're going to, but supposedly, it's their purpose in life. But it's quite a tricky bit. But basically, the whole thing is that through a rather convoluted way, Joe Gardner ends up becoming 22's mentor. And 22 has been there, is called 22, and I think it's a she, but we don't really know, is voiced by Tina Fey, is notoriously difficult and has been there basically since the dawn of time. And every mentor, she's been through loads of different mentors, very famous people like Archimedes, all these people, like all these great minds, and they have not been able to find her spark. And she's basically lost all hope and doesn't really care and just wants to stay in where she is like currently inhabiting and doesn't want to go to Earth. They both end up going to Earth. Basically, that's what happens. She ends up in Joe Gardner's body and Joe Gardner ends up in a cat's body. So that's kind of, I think I probably gave you a bit too much, but if you're watching this review, you've probably seen the film already. So what do I think about it? Well, I described it as basically, I see this film as the third film in a Pete Docter trilogy, which is started with Up, then we had Inside Out, and then we finish off with Soul. And the reason I think that is because they're all about quite similar things. So I still think Inside Out Inside Out and Up I still think are better than Soul. But I think Soul is one of Pixar's best films they've done in a long time. I would say Coco is probably the film that they did previously that is better than this, but I would call it kind of gold standard Pixar in the sense that it's a film about a theme that has a theme in it that is difficult to talk about, which is of course death. But actually, the film isn't actually about that. It's actually about your purpose in life. And what is your purpose in life? It's about loneliness. It is about depression. It's about obsession. It's about selfishness. Joe Gardner is actually quite a selfish character, and it takes him meeting 22 to realize that and to realize what is important in life. It's about you start off thinking that this is all about trying to find 22's spark, but actually in the end you realize that it's actually the spark doesn't really matter, because that might not necessarily be your purpose in life. You could, there's a great scene with Joe Gardner's hairdresser in the movie where the hairdresser basically says, actually, I can't remember what his purpose. Well, he's of course a great hairdresser, but that wasn't that wasn't what he really wanted to do. That wasn't his spark, and that's what the film was about. That you might not necessarily end up doing the thing that you love. That might not be your purpose in life, but you kind of can still find other things that you love. It doesn't. For me, I suppose my love is pop culture, and I'm very lucky to have found something that allows me to explore that as a job. But that doesn't happen for everybody, and I think that's actually a really powerful message. I think it's a really, really powerful message. I think it's really well. It just looks beautiful, but then again, it's a Pixar film, so they all look beautiful. But it's a story. It's a complicated story. It's complex. It makes you really think, and that's why I really did love it. I really did love Soul. Again, I wouldn't say it's the best Pixar film ever, but that's really, really like when I was talking about ranking the DC Comics movies earlier, but like ranking Pixar would be bloody impossible because there are such good films there. They make such good films. They make such complex films about such difficult ideas, and they are films that are fundamentally children's films. And that's just why I think, even there are lots of people that were worrying about Pixar after John Lasseter was forced out, and John Lasseter was the person that made Pixar, but there are people there like Pete Docter that are very more than capable of pushing, doing excellent things, making brilliant films, and they are very good at that. And I'm not worried about the future of Pixar. I think it's very exciting, and I think Soul. I mean, I didn't put it in my top 5 films of the year, but that's because I wrote that article before watching it. But I think it would be in my top 5, nearer the top than the bottom of that list. I think it's a fantastic film. And let me know what you guys think about Soul in the comments below. Right, now moving on to a film that I wasn't so happy with. And I'm really upset to report that I really did not care much for Wonder Woman 1984. I've said this before, I was so excited for this film. I was really looking forward to seeing Patty Jenkins' second Wonder Woman film starring Gal Gadot, Kristen Wiig, Pedro Pascal, Robin Wright and Connie Nielsen. But yeah, in the end, it just wasn't very good. It was the real overriding feeling I had from this film was one of disappointment. I was so disappointed by this film. And because I really thought it was going to be great. I really thought it was going to be like. I think there are problems with all the characters, and that's something that I don't usually say. I think there are problems with Max Lord, with Pedro Pascal's Max Lord. I'm like, he's a villain, but is he really? He's kind of like their version of Trump, but he isn't really their version of Trump. I do not understand his motives. I don't understand what he's trying to do. I don't understand how he found out so much about this Dreamstone. It literally is a movie about people trying to find a stone to make a wish, and it's like, oh. No, this is not what I wanted from a Wonder Woman film. But that said, there are elements in it that I do love. There are, lots of scenes between Gal Gadot and Chris Pine that I think are great. I think they have great chemistry. I think Kristen Wiig had the potential to be brilliant in this film, and I think she does as much as she can do with the source material, with the material she's given. But she is fundamentally. Her character is basically Jamie Foxx's character in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. She starts off as a dorky person that has basically a crush on the film's hero, which is Diana Prince. She wishes she could be like Diana Prince. She ends up becoming like Wonder Woman, but I suppose loses her humanity, because the whole thing is if you wish for something, you get that wish, but you lose something in return. And I suppose she lost her humanity, which is kind of an interesting idea. But when it was pointed out to me that she is a lot like Jamie Foxx's Electro, I just could not stop thinking it. I could not stop thinking that, and that probably ruined it for me. But I think it's also the kind of classic, the classic situation in which the woman starts off wearing glasses and is considered dorky, and then takes them off, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, she's beautiful." It's just such a again, this film is so full of cliches. It's set in the 80s, but it really doesn't use that to its potential. We could have had so much great 80s music in this movie, and I do wonder that whether they might have cut corners, like they might have, because it's quite expensive. Like 80s music is very popular, and because it's very good, so they could have had like some great Duran Duran tracks in there, and so just fantastic 80s music, but no, nothing really. There's a scene in the film where you see, so Diana Prince is with Steve Trevor. He comes back in a very convoluted way, by the way, with Steve Trevor, and they're going through Washington, D.C., and I don't know. I've never been to Washington, so I don't know. But I don't know it at all. But she's showing him these things, saying, "Oh, this is art." Oh, and then they go past kids that are dancing, that are break dancing, and she's like, "That's break dance," but they're literally break dancing to nothing. There's no music, and it's like, oh my God! It's just such a good opportunity to have such a good 80s track there, but there wasn't, and I feel like this whole film is a missed opportunity. I really do, and it's why I didn't rate it very well. And I think that sigh is the perfect review for Wonder Woman 1984, because I just looked at my review. Yes, the CGI was poor in places. It really was poor, and this film is one that's been delayed. They had a lot of time. It's not this isn't down to lack of time. It's just a film that's just not very good, unfortunately. But and it really breaks my heart to say that, because I really, really wanted to love this film. But I have heard people say that they really did like it. And I do wonder whether your enjoyment of the film does depend on whether you watched it at home on your TV or you watched it in cinemas. And I do think this probably is a film that would benefit from being on the biggest screen possible. But that's just my overall feelings on the film. If you liked it, please let me know. If you didn't like it, let me know. And I'm really sorry my voice is going. It's been a long stream. And it's that time of year where everyone gets a bit sick. But thank you so much for watching and listening. I'm going to, in 2021, it's going to be a big push. We're going to do more videos, but I am going to keep it, I think, to 3 live streams a week. The podcast will also come out, so if you like listening to this as a podcast, you can find it everywhere you get your podcast at Small Screen Stories. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please give us 5 stars. You can go and have a look at the site over at small-screen.co.uk. You can follow Small Screen everywhere on social media. That's Small Screen Co. That's on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Like and subscribe on subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching on Facebook, then like the page, follow the page, like the video, share the video. If you're watching on Twitch, keep on doing what you're doing, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great New Year's Eve and Happy New Year.